These are my friends Matt Singer and Devinder Carson. We haven't talked in 6 years, but this conversation was long worth the wait. One of my biggest flaws was that I just couldn't wrap my mind around the idea that I was good enough. Singer, do you find yourself struggling with that same kind of idea?
When I was even in high school, I had pretty unrealistic expectations about what my future might be. Honestly, I'd say the one thing that has helped me.
You guys know in high school I was terribly depressed, and I continued through all of college. I've passed that hurdle and I'm not really like that anymore. I'm so grateful that I finally made it out because I was waiting for it for 6 years, right? It was 6 years. And I think that the biggest thing about it was
not that you need my validation, but I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
I hope that this is the start of a trend. If you're listening and you're someone who I used to connect with in high school or any point in my life, and you watch the show, first of all, thank you for supporting. And second of all, please reach out. I would love to talk to you on the show, off the show, just reconnect. This conversation was just so special to me because the whole show is about our 20s, how we're going about our 20s, what we're doing to find success, what's working, what's not working. And we got really deep. We did. You're going to see the conversation starts off kind of corporate. We're just talking about, jobs and stuff. And then it gets hard. And we get into topics that, when you're catching up for the first time in 6 years, I didn't even expect to go there, but we did. And I'm really glad that we did because the whole point of me coming into this conversation was we're going to be meeting again for the second time, honestly. And I really do feel like I met them again. And I'm so glad that I did. So if you enjoyed today's conversation, follow along, leave a rating, and share the show. If someone's out there and they don't know that the show even exists, maybe they would love to reconnect, and that would be awesome. And it's all because you guys shared the show. And I can't thank you enough for being supporters. It really means the world to me. Thank you for tuning in to the R20s podcast. Without further ado, Matt Singer and Devinder Carson. So I guess I'll start with Devinder just because we haven't talked literally at all. So if you had to think back to your senior year self, so 2017, 5 years ago, and now compare it to yourself now, what do you think's the biggest change that you've undergone in that time?
Yeah, so I think the thing that's had the biggest effect on me is that I'm pointing myself in a direction now, whereas before I was not. Everybody, we're all moving in a direction at every point in time. We're moving towards something, but before I wasn't really controlling the direction I was moving in.
Yeah.
I was just doing what I was told to do. I'd go to school and I applied to college, and um, it wasn't really that intentional. And now it's everything that I do, it's based around me moving towards some sort of goal that I want to achieve and that I've set the intention of achieving. And it's made a big difference in my life because it's given me some semblance of meaning. And before, I did not really have that.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
honestly think I feel the same way, where I did everything that I just thought was traditional when I was 18. Honestly, because I didn't really know any better. I didn't really have any ambitions of my own. I I should rephrase that a little bit. I wanted to go to the military academy really bad our senior year, and then I got rejected. And after that, I was just kind of okay, I have no idea what I want to do with my life. So I got rejected from every other school that I applied to because I absolutely bombed all the applications, kind of intentionally. And then I ended up going to Fairfield just because they were the only school that could actually feed me. That was legit the reason I went there. And at the time I was just okay, I'm quite literally just going through the motions. And it took me a little bit to actually just get on my feet and figure out what I was doing when I was at school. And then even after graduating from school, it wasn't really until I started doing this that I finally felt like I had some semblance of taking control of a path that I want to set myself down on life. And it's been really rewarding, I think, in my eyes. Singer, do you think it's been the same kind of case for you? Do you think you kind of had that lost feeling too? Or was it something that might have clicked, earlier on?
I would say for me it was a little different because I always kind of had a direction actually in terms of what I wanted to do.
Oh, nice.
Because when I was really young, I wanted to be a dentist my whole life, and then I got to high school and I stopped wanting to be a dentist. But pretty quickly, I clung on to business.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like all right, there wasn't a lot of time in between that, and I liked business too. So like it was pretty easy for me to like do it in college.
Yeah.
I would say honestly for me it was more like learning about myself even, and like I would say for me like something that's kind of in a way clicked in the past couple of years for me is honestly this appreciation for like learning,
Yeah.
because just me wanting to learn about stuff has made me learn a lot more about stuff. So like I feel like I've learned about a lot more recently than I had throughout like high school. Like, and I feel like before that, I just kind of learned about the things I liked. Now, like for me, just wanting to learn about stuff, I learned about like all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's helped. Like I said, like it's made me like kind of understand myself in a better sense
Yeah.
because I had the direction, but I don't know. Like I said, like it's kind of just maybe like emotional learning and stuff like that. I guess.
Yeah, and I'm big on emotional learning too. And I think part of my whole idea behind the show is trying to maximize joy in all of our lives. I think one of the key components of that is just constantly learning, constantly trying new things and seeing, okay, I haven't done this before. What if this really excites me? And maybe it does, and that's the avenue that you go down. And it really makes me happy that you've been able to do that. Devinder, do you think you could have gotten to this point that you are now without college? I'm not necessarily do you regret going to college, but do you think it was a necessity to point yourself on this path that you've placed yourself on?
Nah, not at all.
Yeah.
Um, I had experiences at college that ended up like, shaping me into the person I become and like changed my values and made them what they are now. But
Hmm.
I also just as easily could have gone to college and not had those same experiences, and I could be no different than I was um,
Yeah.
before I went to college. So
I yeah, I think I have the same kind of ideal where I don't regret going to college at all. I mean, I met my best friends and I had great memories. The education too. I mean, for what I do, I work in finance now, and I couldn't have gotten to that point without having the education. So for that, I'm really grateful. But I definitely think in terms of being just an avid learner, I could have developed that same love of learning and having conversation like we are now without having to go to college in the first place. I think it's definitely there's pros and cons to everything, but it's just interesting to hear people's perspectives, especially as soon as we transition right out of college and you kind of start to see how the real world acts and how the college degree starts to fade away a little bit more as you get a little bit older. And I'm already starting to see it where my college experience isn't as relevant anymore as it used to be even just 2 years ago, which is kind of crazy to say. Um, Singer, when you're doing your work now, do you ever feel the desire to maybe continue your education with a master's program or something like that, or do you think you're kind of done with the formal education system?
So the work I do right now, I have no desire
Yeah.
to like that makes me have no desire to want to continue my education.
Yeah.
But in my own head, there's like I do want to further my education though
Hmm.
because there's like other things that I see myself being able to do with that further education. Like I'm thinking about doing a you could do a combined JD MBA, so you get like the law degree at the same time as the MBA, and it's only like a year longer.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that, and so I think I might do that. But I don't know. I just been wanting to like chill, but I should probably look into that sooner than later.
Yeah. I hear a lot of people already talking about how they don't want to go back just because they can't get themselves back into that mindset. And everyone has been telling me just the more you wait, the harder it's going to get to be able to balance the schedule with everything. And it really does weigh down on you because we have this expectation that we do need to go back to school if we want to receive a higher degree salary, if we want to take the next step in our career advancement. I kind of think it's a lie though, where I think there's so many options out there for us now in terms of alternative methods of trying to make money, whether that be online or starting your own thing. Or I think this shift away from the traditional education system is so beneficial to our generation because it's really going to allow us to experience these joys that can be found in other parts of the world that previously it was just so traditional and just kind of like just blah, like everyone was following the same kind of path. And Devinder, when you're on your path now, do you know how you're going to plan it out day by day? Like, how do you take it? Are you taking it months at a time, years at a time? And how are you able to communicate with yourself as to when you need to make a change in your own path?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because you just made me think that I should probably put some timelines on things in my plan because it's neither of those. It's kind of just in big steps. I
Yeah.
guess it's in like multi-year chunks actually. I haven't really gotten to that micro level, but I think it's
Yeah.
beneficial too, so I ought to. But for me,
Yeah.
it's just like I just have a few of these really big macro goals.
Hmm.
So I guess for context, like I'm working at this company now, and I'm learning a lot, and the goal is that we scale, and then we sell the company, and I get a little payout.
Oh,
And then the
nice.
next goal is go do that again, but like at a smaller company.
Yeah.
Instead of a 100-person company, I do this at like a 5-person company,
Yeah. Hmm.
and really like I'm one of the foundational forces besides driving it up, and then do it again, and then after
Yeah.
that, do it again. Except I'm the first person there, and it's like my baby.
Yeah.
And after that,
I love that. Yeah.
and then after that, we go swim with the fishes, like literally, not figuratively. Like I'm
Yeah.
gonna go to the beach and swim with fish.
Just go buy a boat and just go swim out there with the fishes. I love that plan. I'm kind of trying to take life the same kind of way right now too. I'm viewing it right now in 5 year chunks
Yeah.
because I think I'm getting a little bit too in my head if I try to play it day by day. Where I do try to plan out my day, I think it's beneficial to say, all right, here's some tasks that I want to get accomplished today. But I think if I'm measuring my personal definition of success in such a short time horizon, that I'm just giving myself unnecessary anxiety where I'm going to prevent myself from achieving a goal because I'm putting this preconceived notion of a time limit on that quite literally no one else is putting on for me. So I've gotten
Mhm.
some solace out of just saying, like, okay, in 5 years, I want to be able to grow this podcast into something that I can do full time.
Yeah.
5 years from that, I want to be able to grow it into a full business where I can hire employees and start doing crazy stuff like traveling places and going to meet people and stuff like that, and just kind of taking life one day to like, not one day at a time, just in that chunk like that.
5 years at a time.
Yeah, 5 years at a time, quite literally. Singer, do you find yourself struggling with that same kind of idea where one of my biggest flaws with my own psyche when I first got out of school was that I just couldn't wrap my mind around the idea that I was good enough. I kept telling myself like I just shouldn't be where I am right now. Like I should be doing more. I should be working harder. And on this timetable that I've planned for myself, like I'm not where I want to be. And it kind of really detracted from my mental health a lot. Where I was getting to the point where I was just like, I can't keep up with all this self-imposed stress that I have going on. Do you think you have maybe anything similar that you can share, or any strategies that you've gone about in terms of kind of keeping everything in perspective for yourself?
Yeah. So like, I feel like throughout when I was like even in high school, I had like pretty unrealistic expectations about what my future might be.
Hmm.
Where I'm like, yeah, right out of college, I'm gonna have like a crazy salary job and stuff like that. But it's honestly, I think you kind of just gotta. For me, I feel like I've been lucky where I am currently. Even I kind of put it in perspective of like, yeah, just like the whole world. I'm in New York, and uh, I have like I have a decent job, and it's got like a decent salary,
Yeah.
and like people would like kill for my salary across the world.
Yeah.
I, honestly, I'd say the one thing that has helped me, it's probably bad advice because people tell me, but I liked it at the time when I worked at a deli during COVID up at school, and I had to like clean the bathroom or like clean the basement or something.
Yeah.
And I don't remember being that like fussed about it, but the guy who was like telling me what to do, he was like, "Come on, it could be worse. You could be mining coal." And I was like, "Yeah, like you're right. I could be in a coal mine."
Yeah.
And for some reason, that just like always helped me. Like I always think I'm like I could be in a coal mine right now,
Yeah.
and so like for me to be living in a pretty good place, like with a and like I think I'm comfortable, so
Yeah.
like
No, I agree. Whenever I get down, I just constantly put everything into perspective, telling myself I live in one of the biggest cities in the world, and it's a place that people travel and they plan a vacation. This is going to be their one vacation in a year that they're going to come to this place that I take for granted. And they would kill to do whatever I get to do that on days I complain about having to go do. It just kind of puts
I
everything
know.
into perspective, and it makes us sound like whiny little people, but like
I know. The
it's
one other thing
natural.
I would say
Yeah.
is this. Like, I was watching the movie Ben Hur one time,
Hmm.
and they go to Rome, and they show Rome being like the coolest place ever. It's like the most beautiful. Everyone's having a good time. Like everyone's just drinking and everything. And I
Yeah.
was thinking, I'm like, they're showing it that way because it's like the capital of like of like the strongest empire of the time, and
Yeah.
like they're probably gonna show off like New York as being that one day, because
Yeah.
like it's gonna be like, oh, like New York was this like crazy place in the United States of America, which was like this like, yeah, this crazy, like it was like the superpower of the world at the time, and like New York was like the biggest city with like it had everything.
Yeah.
So I try not to take that for granted.
Same. Honestly, same. I want to shift away from talking about jobs. I enjoy talking about it, but I want to get more into the emotional side of everything. Devinder, with now being on the West Coast, have you noticed a shift in your mindset just in terms of maybe your relationship with how you view your time as a whole? Because on the East Coast, it's very like work, work, work all the time. Everybody's just kind of busy, be running around all the time. The rhetoric on the West Coast is it's always more relaxed, even though there is a hustle culture in cities like San Francisco and stuff like that. Everybody takes more time to just kind of appreciate the moment and everything like that. Being in school there now, working there full time, have you noticed a change in yourself that you're just more appreciative of the moment as opposed to just like
This is
last?
so funny because you know you say that it's the culture that the culture here is to be more relaxed and laid back and in the moment. In fact,
Yeah,
that's just what we East Coasters think is the culture on the West Coast. You know, like I'm
yeah.
not in the center of LA. It's exactly the same. Everyone is extremely
Wow.
busybodied. Everyone is on their hustle, on their grind set, like completely dialed in on doing whatever they're trying to do. It's like it's culturally extremely similar in that sense. And so the thing that I've actually
Hmm.
realized is it's it's more so it's less about East Coast versus West Coast. It's more about like urban versus rural almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
How do you think you've reacted to it? Are you appreciative of the lifestyle, or is it something that you would look to change as you continue down your path?
Hmm. I think that I think I'm pretty compatible with the busy-bodied culture, but you know, I do think that a lot of people here and in New York City, like including myself, do forget to be in the moment.
Yeah.
Like I think you can have both at once,
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I
Agreed.
think that
One thing.
maybe the
Yeah.
trap is that people they get super busy-bodied, but they do it unintentionally, and that's why they find it really upsetting, right? Is
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
get in this rat race where like all you're caring about is hustling and you're not actually enjoying your life. But
Yeah.
I think if you are intentionally submitting to this busy-bodied culture and that's like actually what you want to do, then
Yeah.
then it's not suffering anymore because you actually want to be in that moment and then you can enjoy the moment.
Yeah. I think the way you just phrased it is perfect because I was submitting to the busybody culture when I first graduated from school, and it wasn't voluntary. It just I kind of found myself there. And it was a combination of I was living at home still and I wasn't connecting with friends from high school. I wasn't staying connected with friends from college. And my life was quite literally go to work, go to the gym, have like an hour or two, which at the time I was filling with just nonsense, which is like watching mindless television that I was getting nothing out of and then just repeating every single day. And I was quite literally starting to see myself get on that hamster wheel of the rat race. And it took me like a whole year before I woke up and I was just like, I got to change something now, or this is going to be life. And that didn't mean change my job and make a radical shift or something like that. It just meant, okay, I need to restructure how I go about my day. I need to take time for myself and I need to make time for my relationships. And it wasn't until I moved into the city, I moved in with my friends from college, And then I started prioritizing my relationships with my family more. I started prioritizing my relationship with myself more. And that's when I got to the point where I was able to kind of say, okay, I like where I am right now. I have the power again. And I feel like I can make the shift at any single time that I want to go down any avenue that I choose. Singer, also being in the city, how have you found just relationships as a whole, whether it's staying connected with family as you go back and forth from work every day, staying connected with friends? I know you were up at Oneonta, so it's not exactly close if all your friends were staying around the area and having to go back and forth with Oneonta and everything like that. How have you gone about just kind of maintaining relationships like that? And do you think it's something that you can continue to improve upon, or do you think it's something that right now you're content with the way that you currently have it structured?
Yeah, so like I'm at home still
Yeah,
after college, and there's not a lot of people from high school, like people I know in the area, so it's
yeah,
definitely been kind of tougher. I did luckily I had a couple people I knew uh at first, but then slowly it's kind of dwindled in numbers
yeah,
post college. I will say it's been good for my family because my grandma lives close by, and I was there. I was really close when my grandma died recently, basically. So that was good too because I was glad I got to like spend a lot of time with him before he passed away.
yeah,
Yeah, so like it's definitely been tough in terms of friendships. For
yeah,
family, I'd say it's been really good because like I've just kind of been there.
yeah,
Um, like while I get annoyed at my parents and stuff because like they're my parents, like it's
yeah,
just like normal. You know, it's not like I'm not like I'm not like fighting with them and stuff. Like so, it's like it's been pretty good like that.
yeah,
And but I'm definitely kind of like I'm young and I need to socialize more with people my age. So kind of
yeah.
looking to get in the city. That way I could do that more because it seems I know a lot more people there.
Same. And first of all, I'm sorry for your loss. And I mean, I try to get to my grandparents like once a week, and I know that relationship for me is something that's like just so crucial and special for me. And I can only imagine how that would have been. Um, but I feel you when you're talking about getting into the city and just trying to interact with more people around our age. It's such a weird phenomenon how the city's so big, but it can still be so isolating if you don't really find yourself in the correct social circle or put yourself in the correct place. Where I walk around constantly outside my own building, and there's people around our age all the time, and yet we'll never interact with each other because either I have my headphones in, I'm just not in the mood, or they have their headphones in. Nobody ever wants to interact with each other, and just it's like a vicious cycle where everyone's so content nowadays. I feel just kind of being in their own little world and doing their own thing that we've kind of lost touch with making new friends and building upon uh, relationships that could become friendships and stuff like that. Devinder, I know you're still in LA and SC being so close. How many of your friends have stuck around the area and in general being in a completely new environment beyond college in a new city? Have you had connections that you can kind of I hate the word networking, but I'll use it here, kind of network around to help grow your social circle? Or is it something that you kind of feel as well that me and Singer might be feeling too, where it's a little bit difficult for me, especially to kind of put myself out there into a social circle that I want to find myself in and make new friends that I currently don't have a relationship with at
Oh
all?
yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough. Uh,
Yeah.
Probably about half the people I knew in college stayed in LA, and so I'll hang out with
Hmm.
them, But it's hard. The most of the time, the only way I make new friends is if uh, if I meet their people that they're also friends with, and I become friends with them. And then
Yeah.
past that, my workplace switched from fully remote to hybrid at the beginning of this year. So I've been able to make friends
Oh,
with
nice.
a few of my coworkers. But past that, like that's the only way I've made any friends, and it's pretty terrifying, right? Because I don't know how I would go about making friends in like uh, in a way other than those two ways. And it's like, what do you do if you're a person in that position where maybe you didn't have that many friends in college, or you're in a place where none of your college friends are at, and maybe you work at a small company, or you work at a company with like a bunch of people that are outside your age, or you're just not really compatible with, like, what do you do, man? I think,
Yeah.
yeah. it's super tough, and like I the only thing I can imagine is like you can join like recreational groups or something, or like groups within the city, but that seems really daunting. That's like that's tough to
Yeah.
put yourself out there like that.
Yeah. And I always think, and I'm my biggest critic, and I always think that, it's just me being me, and I could just put myself out there and just be like, no one's watching. Even if you embarrass yourself right now, they're going to forget and stuff like that. But I still hold myself back in that
I have a
regard.
question for
And
you,
I've,
actually. So,
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
you live with your friends from college, and I'm assuming your friends,
Yeah.
you get along with your coworkers a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, like, if you didn't have those relationships and you were in New York City, like without your college friends, and you weren't really close with your
Hmm.
coworkers, do you think that being in that position would spur you to put yourself out there more?
No, I think I'd suffer, honestly. I think I'd allow myself 100% to crack under the pressure of, I would get in my head so much and say to myself that, okay, I have a safety net right now where my parents are so close that I would probably take myself out of the environment quite often, where I would say, I have no reason to be here. I can just go back home where it's safe. And if I want to just be alone by myself, at least I could be alone by myself, and like someone's going to cook me dinner tonight, as opposed to me cooking like $2 food that I got from Trader Joe's today. That's not even all that good. I think one aspect of my character that I need to continue working on, and something that I'm actively trying to continue working on, is my ability to connect with people and just find common ground and build upon it to form a new kind of relationship. And I think I've gotten decently good at that in a professional sense, where I find it really easy now to network with people when I want to get them on the show, or I want to just network with people at my own company. And it's easy for me because it's kind of a relationship where there's no expectation that you're going to be there in all kinds of situations. When you enter into a friendship or you take it one step further and you're trying to find a romantic partner, I think that's where I personally still get scared. Is I find it really difficult to open myself up to that type of relationship because I'm really scared of being vulnerable and showing myself in a new light to new people who I don't know how they're going to react. And I had a conversation not too long ago with a woman. Her name is Siri Lindley. While we're recording this, the episode actually came out this week, and we had a whole conversation about the importance of being all in when you go to love, and how if you don't go all in when you go to express love, whether that be love for a thing, love for a family member, friend, beyond that, that you're kind of selling yourself short and you're never going to develop a full sense of trust and a really quality relationship because you're shutting yourself off. I think that's where I am now. As much as I don't like to think that's where I am, I think if you told me go outside and go find like a youth, not a youth, but find like a young person's rec sports league, like something that I'd be really into, I think maybe I'd go, but I don't think I would join the group of guys for a beer afterwards. I don't think I would stick around to try to kind of get to know them. I think I'd just kind of do my thing and just be like, all right, that was enough social activity for me for today. And then I get over any anxiety that I have, and try to recharge and maybe think about it. So that was a really long answer to your question. But no, I don't think I would thrive. And I'm really glad that my roommates convinced me to come live with them, because at first I wasn't going to do it. I was pretty content with the mental space that I was able to get myself into. Because for that year after graduating from school, it was not the best mental space at all. I was really struggling, kind of identifying with myself and what I liked about myself, and kind of how you had to go through that same kind of journey. I didn't like the path that I was on, and I needed to make a change. And I kind of dove into this path of self improvement and everything like that, but I was still ignoring key traits about myself, like dealing with loneliness from not having a partner and not having friends that I was actively seeing day to day, and how I was allowing external validation to dictate my own personal perception of myself. A lot of topics that I think you can struggle with for a lifetime, but it was something I was still trying to grow on. Um, So again, really long-winded answer, but I'll kind of pass it off to you guys, whoever wants to answer it first. I'm interested to just hear your perspective on male loneliness in particular, because that was something that I'm continuing to navigate. I'd even say still struggle with, where at times I get really down about not being a good enough friend and being present all the time. And I get really down, I'm sorry, I get really down about not having a girlfriend, a partner in my life that we're getting to the age now where I'm starting to see kids who are our age married, some even children, and I'm starting to think to myself, like, what's going on with me that I'm not able to sustain a relationship like that? Is it something that I need to work on, or maybe it's just I'm doing what I need to do right now, and it'll happen in due time, as a lot of people like to say.
Yeah. Um, like honestly, I do see that male loneliness like epidemic. It seems like or whatever. Like it's becoming like an increasing problem. It has to be because of the technology. Like just because
Yeah,
we live in this world of technology where you're able to sit in your house and get entertainment. Like
yeah,
literally the inability to do that. Like where you'd have to walk into town to just do something. Because I think like that's just natural for us. We just want to like do something with our brain, with our hands, with something.
yeah.
And there's just so much to do at home these days. And I think it has kind of turned us like for myself, like yeah, I would say like there's times of like loneliness and you kind of like just I don't know, you just like I'm at home like I said, so luckily I do have my parents, so
Hmm.
that always helps just because I'm like all right, my parents are always right there.
Yeah,
But I definitely feel bad for like I hear about like yeah, I don't know, like if I was in your position, Devinder, at the moment, well, like maybe not your position, like someone who's like living by themselves in a city with like no family, to me that's a little tougher. Like you just kind of out there on your own, just vibing, and I don't know, I don't know where I'm going with this answer.
it's a tough topic, and Devinder, I'll let you go before I jump back in again. You have
Yeah,
anything to say?
it's fucking. Excuse me, it's brutal, dude.
No, you can
It's
curse. Yeah,
fucking
it
brutal.
is. It really is.
It's insane. Like, because the crazy thing is like, I feel lonely sometimes. You've experienced loneliness, Tom Singer. I'm sure you have too. Being in Yorktown, um, and like, I don't think that any of us are feeling the worst of it at all. Like, we're probably all in like, I don't know, like 75th percentile of like non loneliness. Like
Yeah, yeah,
there's this there's just like there's a massive proportion of dudes that are like they're just like incredibly lonely and like it's like unfathomable to me. Like it's people that maybe they only have like one or two friends, or like maybe it's a guy who's like never been with a girl or something, you know
yeah,
and it's a lot, and we've seen that like that number has grown. I think like over the past 20 years, the proportion of men that are in this like extreme loneliness category, however they quantify that, it's increased by like 20%, like a flat 20%. Like it's gone from
yeah.
like 30% of men to 50% or something like that. And yeah, it's crazy, man. But one thing that I've noticed is I think that something that really contributes to it is like I probably the majority of men, and myself included. I don't have it that bad, but the majority of men just have like this inability to like reach out for help, and this inability
Yeah,
to be like, "Hey, I need some help. I need someone by my side." To reach out to that. Maybe you have like one or two like real friends, and there's a lot of people that can't reach out even to those people, or even to their
yeah,
parents, and it's like and I think that's the biggest thing that is contributing to it. And then there's also the societal factor because even though us men are allowed to be more emotional now than we used to be, you're still kind of not. Like you're still like a pussy or whatever if you aren't
yeah,
fine by yourself. And so I think that we're all kind of subject to these expectations. And
Yeah.
like even my friends that I know, like popular guys, if they're lonely or something, they're not gonna reach out in a healthy way,
Yeah.
and they're only okay because they happen to have a good amount of friends. So even if they don't reach out, they end up like getting satiated enough that they're not like utterly miserable.
Yeah. It's one of the biggest, I don't know if phenomenons is the right word, but just something I saw in a lot of guys our age when we were in college is, you would have all this fun and then it would be like a one-on-one session and some of the guys would have like a lot of drinks in them and then they would just open up and they would just say how they were really feeling and it would be like the darkest parts of them are coming out because this is the only time that they felt comfortable sharing it is a time when they can either not actually remember or just allege that they don't remember ever saying it. And I always found that really powerful is how we suppress these really powerful emotions that come with loneliness, whether that be this sense of despair, this sense of self-hatred. It's something that I suppressed for the longest time, where I would quite literally just tell myself like I hate myself because I can't be a good friend. I hate myself because in my eyes not having a girlfriend was a reflection on my own personal character, saying that there must be something wrong with me that I can't do something that's so normal by societal standards and of course by men's standards that it's always seen as a status symbol if you have a girlfriend by your side or if you graduate and you have a wife by your side. And I do think that we are getting to a point where men are more comfortable sharing their emotions. But I think Devinder said it perfectly that there are certain emotions still where you will get name called by other men or you will get shamed to a degree if you express them, especially if you express them in the wrong setting. Like, forbid you ever show emotion during like work or something like that. Forbid you ever show it in front of your family when you're not supposed to be the vulnerable one in the family. You're supposed to be the statuesque one. You're supposed to be the one that's going to be this beacon of, okay, we're not going to panic. We're always just going to stay the course and stuff like that. There's plenty of familial relationships that are like that. And I'm glad that you guys have taken the time to focus on emotional intelligence like that because it's one of the biggest points that I try to do in every single one of these shows that I do is work on my own vulnerability with myself and just talking about it more and more because the more that we talk about it the easier it's just going to get for everybody else. And my goal is that maybe somebody that we went to high school with sees this and they're like, oh my gosh, like they're reconnecting and they actually hear what we're talking about and we're not just talking like BS the whole time. And then maybe they reach out and they say something, or maybe they reach out in their own personal life and they say something to someone who they've been wanting to say something to. That could be the best thing that I could ask for out of this conversation. That'd be awesome. Um, so I really appreciate you guys just getting vulnerable for a little bit right there, just talking, kind of talking about something that not a lot of guys like to talk about. It's definitely something that means a lot to me, and it's just really nice to be able to catch up with you guys. I want to shift back to more just a happy note and just kind of talk about some of the good memories that we have from the past. I mean, why we were friends was because you guys are just both so lively people. You guys were always just smiling. You guys were always funny. You guys always made me feel good. And I'll go back to Singer because me and Devinder just had this little segment where, you know, one of my favorite things was just we would have like one class together, but we would always be like off in the corner, just like talking about just like ridiculous stuff, like starting the wing wagon as like our little business side idea and just doing something fun. Um, and just thank you for that. You always made me just feel better about myself and you were always the type of guy that I wanted to be, where you were always just you had a really good attitude all the time. You're always making me smile, and I always tried to replicate that in everything that I tried to do, especially as I went on, where I was always trying to be the guy that would make other people smile. And I'm glad that you still are making me smile to this day. So, like, what do you think it is just about your character that you're able to do that? Is it something that comes naturally to you, or do you too like kind of I know we just talked a lot about making new friends and stuff like that. But even with friends that you currently have, like, how do you just keep up this energy and this ability to bring out the best in people?
Well, first of all, thank you, dude. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that. That's very nice. I would say in high school, I would look at someone like you and try to be more like you. So I
Thank you.
appreciate you saying that about me. Uh, but I don't know, like in terms of like, yeah, my attitude, my character, like I'd say one thing that helps, I think, is having people to look up to, and
Yeah.
like having people that you can like, in a sense, try to replicate, and like, and hopefully those people are good people, or
Yeah.
like people who have like decent morals and stuff like that. And I think I've been lucky enough to have that in my life, so I would definitely probably contribute it to the people, like my aforementioned grandpa, my
Yeah.
dad, and just like probably just a lot of my family members. Like I don't know, I just guess I was raised with a lot of like sarcasm and
Yeah.
uh, jokes in my family, so kind of rubbed off. And I don't know. I feel like in high school I used to try to make meaner jokes. These days I try to make nicer jokes.
It's a sign of the times. Don't stop making people laugh. It's one of my favorite things about you. And Devinder, you make me laugh too all the time. I mean, we spent a lot of time together just between we would have a lot of classes the same. We worked at the same pizzeria for years. And one of my favorite things about you is just you always saw the world just differently than everyone else. I mean that in the best way possible, where you were just so advanced for our age. And now that I'm thinking about it, just kind of reminiscing on all the kinds of conversations that we would have, you were always in tune with just yourself, spirituality. You have so many conversations about, we would have so many conversations just about science and how you see the world. And that curiosity is something that, again, really rubbed off on me. And when I tried going throughout school, I always tried to keep that same level of curiosity that you had, and your ability to not take the world at face value. You would always challenge it and try to see it in a different light and apply it to different aspects of life. And that's one of my favorite things about your character, dude. And I'm glad to see that you're crushing it out there. And I knew you would. And it's not surprising to me at all. But same kind of question that I just asked Singer. How are you able to just not take the world at face value? Because so many people, I think one of our biggest flaws in terms of learning about this world, learning about each other, is that we see one little speck of the world, one little speck of each other, and we make rapid assumptions about the rest of it. But you've never done that in anything that you do. You always look at everything and you look at it in a holistic view. And just how are you able to do that? And how is it able to just help you along it throughout life?
Thank you. Means a lot to hear that. Um,
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of just hardwired to it. I can't really point at something in my development that led me to be like that. I think part of it's kind of cynicism, because we grew up around a lot of people like that, and we grew up, in this kind of like conservative town, and I don't mean just like politically conservative. I mean
Yeah. I
thoroughly
know what you mean. Yeah.
conservative, like you know, people that were kind of dogmatic in a lot of their beliefs. And I just, I grew up with a lot of stuff where, adults say, you got to do this. And I'm like, why? And that was in my character my whole life to question.
Yeah.
I just wanted a good reason why I should do something. And they usually didn't have one. And that, I think, really, really pissed me off. And so that's part of it. I really wanted to examine everything, and I always was trying to find the truth. And there's like, growing up from a very young age, you hear different opinions about everything, especially like on the internet too. And
Yeah.
so I was always just interested in finding out what is actually true. And
Yeah.
yeah, but one thing you said is like that a lot of people, they notice something and they make rapid assumptions, and I don't do that. But that's not true. I actually do that as well. I think that's totally just part of the human brain, and it's kind of like I think that it's a natural phenomenon. Like we've evolved to be able to rapidly analyze something and draw a conclusion from it, right? And I
Yeah.
think the interesting thing about that is it's like your ability to it's only called an assumption when it's a bad thing, right? If you're
Yeah.
right, it's like it's like a read, right? Or like you're seeing through someone or something. And so I think our ability to do that is a good thing. There's like two things about it. Is one, if you are going to let yourself do that, make sure that whatever conclusion you're drawing is correct. And two is like you have to be flexible and you have to
Yeah.
realize like if that original conclusion you came to, that original assumption was wrong, you have to be flexible and humble enough to not be willing to change your mind in the future. That was a big thing for my development because I cared a lot about being right. I still do. I cared so much about being right. Like if I was wrong about anything, it was like such a massive hit to my ego. And so I would just like fall on my own sword, like die, like arguing my point even when I was wrong. And now I'm
Yeah.
more of this person where I'll say something very vehemently, and if someone's like, "Oh, I disagree," and they tell me a reason why, and it's something I haven't heard before, and it's believable and it makes sense and it it's logically sound, and then I'll just change my mind. I'll be like, actually, I think you're right. I think that's part
Yeah.
of it.
I'm trying to live the same kind of way. Where, of course, we all love to be right, but part of why I started doing this is because I enjoy being proven wrong, or just seeing the world in a different light that I've never seen it before. And it makes me feel like I'm living. It makes me feel like I'm actively engaging in the human experience and interacting with other humans who have had completely different experiences in this world. And that excites me, where I'm not just kind of going down this siloed path, lonely, like we're talking about. Um, it's a wild journey, honestly, and the exciting part is that it's just getting started, and it's certainly brought joy to my life, and I'm really excited to be able to continue doing something like this. And I'm really grateful that it's allowed me to have the opportunities that it's had. And this one today is really special. Um, that I just by chance ran into each other at the grocery store. Um, but what normally would have just been maybe me and Singer hanging out has turned into us being able to reconnect. And I hope this is the beginning of a rekindled friendship. I hope this isn't just a one-time thing. That would really make me happy. Um, just to finish it off, I mean, the whole show is just talking about joy and everything like that. Do you guys have one thing that maybe you've picked up over the past couple of years that you didn't have before that is providing you with a sense of joy that's kind of carrying you throughout the days?
Yeah, I have something in mind.
Yeah, go for it.
I I've changed a lot in the past 2 years in particular. It's been kind of a shockingly rapid evolution. And I kind of had a story that I wanted to tell, just like in the theme of this podcast and what you're going for.
Yeah, go for
It
it.
was like you guys know in high school I was like terribly depressed. I was so down. I was like suicidal quite often. Um,
Hmm.
and I continued through like all of college pretty much too. And you know, I'm I'm at a point in my life as of like 6 months ago or so. I got to a point where I'm not. I've passed that hurdle, and I'm not really like that anymore. I'm not. I have pangs of depression sometimes or sadness, but I'm not like just utterly depressed all the time. It's more of like a once a week thing now. But it used to be like an everyday thing. So it's a remarkable improvement. And I think about that a lot because it's really dramatically changed my life. Like I'm so grateful that I finally made it out because I was waiting for it for like 6 years, right? It was like 6 years, and it got to a point where I thought it just wouldn't happen, but it did, and it's huge. It's been huge for me to be able to like enjoy my life. And I think that the biggest thing about it was like, in high school, I I didn't really have that direction, right? I wasn't really in control of my life like a lot of people have experienced. And, I was doing a lot of drugs. I was smoking a lot of weed. I was playing a lot of video games. And I realized that doing those things was like, those were basically distractions from the fact that I was not happy with my life. And I think that in the past, like beginning about like a year or two ago, I really started to scramble to try and get out of that rut. And I started like setting these goals for myself to do things that I thought would help. Like I really wanted to get a job at a consulting company, so I tried to do that and I wasn't able to. Then I really wanted to go to business school because I thought then I could get a job at a consulting company and then that would fix my life. And I tried to do that, but that didn't work out. And then I tried to, you know, and then I tried to get a different job, and then I was actually like successful in that, um, and um, that helped a lot because then I got to my professional life became something I was actually interested in and had a purpose that fit into my big plan, and
Yeah.
that helped a lot. But I think even those times where for the year when I was trying to get into consulting or trying to get into business school, during that time, even though I was still pretty depressed, it wasn't that bad. It was better than before. And I think the reason why was because I was doing something. I was like, I want to try to do this, and I set this goal, and I was spending time working towards it and putting in blood and sweat into trying to do this. And before it wasn't that. When I was in high school, I was just doing my classes. It wasn't a choice. It was like, this is what you're supposed to do, so do it. And then I did. And in college, it was the same thing. I mean, I chose my major, but passed, and I chose some of my classes, but that was really it. And now that I've graduated, it became like I'm actively choosing to aim for this goal, and then I'm actively choosing to put time and effort towards this, and it resulted in me growing. So to sum it up, it was for me. It was just doing shit and just like doing stuff instead of as opposed to not instead of watching TV, playing video games. Like I'm working on something. Um, I'm learning something. I'm trying something new, and just being active and living this life where I'm having new experiences and I'm choosing to. And so that was the biggest thing for me. It's like setting goals and then working towards them and then seeing that progress or finally achieving that goal. That's like the biggest thing that's really been giving me a ton of joy lately. And that's I think that killed my depression. And that depression was like a nasty hydra, that thing was
Yeah.
that thing was a monster. And so the fact that, you know, setting setting goals and working towards them was able to defeat that. I think that's really powerful, and it says a lot about how important it is to put yourself to work and say, "Hey, I want to go do this thing," and then working on it and working towards it. So I think that's the biggest thing is just work on something, even if you don't like it that much. Just work on stuff until you find something that you like a lot, and then work on it, and then you're probably going to be a lot better off than if you don't. That was my experience.
Not that you need my validation, but I'm so proud of you. Um,
Thank you.
just I can't even imagine what it must have been like for 6 years trying to go through that process every single day at times. Um, I know that there certainly could have been times where it never seemed like there was a light at the end of the tunnel. Um, but it means a lot to me that you didn't give up. It really does. Um, and I really hope somebody hears what you just had to say. And if they're going through the same kind of thing, they can hear how much it meant to you just to find anything, just find something to cling on to and to work on and to push at it and to truly throw yourself into. And like we said before, like go all in, even if it's for only a little bit, and just find that find that light. And I'm really happy that you found it and that you're continuing to find it.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. Singer, I'll let you take us home.
Okay. I definitely think like yeah, Devinder, your answer of like just kind of throwing yourself at work is like a great place to start for uh yeah, for that type of like for finding joy even like because I think being able to take pride in your work is like a really important thing. You know, like doing some hard work and then being able to like look back at it and be like that was a good job. Uh, so I think that's like for myself, I would say like I've kind of found that in cooking where it feels like this long process where it takes like a bunch of steps and like and at the end of it you get to try the result basically and you literally get to judge it like the direct result of like your hand and so I've always I found that the past couple of years very like fulfilling um and honestly it's something like kind of what I brought up before. I would say someone else is like just learning more. Like I think learning like is yeah you'll I think it can turn you into maybe a cynic too, where you learn enough and then you're like, all right, like now everything's bad. But I think I'd like to think that the more you learn, the more optimistic you could become too. And like I just think it's important to know about the thing, like whether it's like something like history, where like 'cause I think that's something we've kind of lost is like I think like this generation specifically is kind of how we've gotten here. Uh, it seems like we have no clue. Basically, it feels like everything's been how it was, and we've just been here. And it's like no, like things had steps, and like they've slowly gotten to this point.
Yeah.
So I think yeah, just like and yeah, like also having goals and being able to achieve them is for sure huge because making like realistic goals for yourself that like well like yeah I'd love to be like a Academy Award winning director. I don't think setting that as a goal for the end of the year is realistic. So like, but maybe traveling somewhere is, you know,
Yeah.
like yeah. I remember I used to think like we went on a trip to Kentucky recently, and I used to think about this barbecue festival because I saw it years ago. I would just be like in my head, I'm like, oh, this barbecue festival is gonna be the coolest thing ever, and like I was just thinking about it in my head, and like we get there, and it looks like some like Yorktown Grange Fair type of thing, and like, like it's nothing special, it's nothing great, but like I was just happy that like I've thought about that for years, and like we were there, and it was fun. Like it was fun still. Like we got to eat some like really good food and listen to some fun music and just talk to people. So like it was a good time, and so like I think being able to yeah dream something up and then achieve it that's definitely huge and trying to achieve some joy.
Yeah. I'm proud of you too. I'm proud of you both. Just to see the kind of people that you guys have become. It just really makes me smile. Once again, a massive thank you to the boys. I'm so glad we were able to do this. It really, it made my day. It really did. So if you enjoyed today's show, follow along, leave a rating, share the show. Really helps grow the show. Really helps spread the word. Maybe somebody doesn't even know this show exists, and it would be great to either reconnect with them online, offline. It doesn't matter. Thank you so much for being a supporter. Until next time, I'll see you.